Hello, it's Callum here. Phil has forced me to do a little pre-intro here. Basically, I had a massive cock-up in the recording of this week's episode in that I forgot to press the record on our recorder, basically, when we started. So the first 20 minutes, we've had to use the backup audio off of Phil's camera. So apologies for the slightly iffy sound quality. We've had a listen. We still think it's pretty good, but just not as good as normal. So sorry about that. And I hope you enjoy this week's episode.
And we are back with the pod crash. Today's guest is Helen Scott, a teammate for a very long time, tandem pilot.
Yeah.
And we also got Callum here.
Yeah, but I'm here for every episode.
Maybe you were busy today. You never know. You always tell me how busy you are.
Yeah, but don't think that this is your podcast. This is our podcast. Like, don't just bring me in as like, oh, we have a special guest today. Let's crack on with the news. Phil, do you have any news this week?
I've been injured this week, but I'm recovered again. I'm all healed up and I'm ready to train.
Would you say that's the worst injury you've ever had in your entire life?
It's probably in the top 10.
What, you've not had 10 injuries?
I've had 10 injuries, minor injuries, so it's been in the top 10.
Yeah, but your worst injury used to be that you hit your knee on a radiator, so
That's a lie. My worst injury is when I fell off my bike in Apeldoorn at the European
Yes,
Championships.
when you ran over a child and then didn't stop
No.
to see if the child was okay.
No, I
I
slammed
need
on
to hear
my
this story, please.
I slammed on my brakes
Yeah.
on wet leaves,
Uh-huh.
and my bike just slid across the bike path and I
Into a
crashed
child.
into a child, and my finger popped open, and I had to get stitches.
Yes, but did you ask, are you okay, child?
No, because I think I'm pretty sure.
Are you okay,
I'm pretty
child?
sure I was concussed.
What?
I'm pretty sure I was concussed because I hit my head quite hard against the child. My finger hurt, and all I was concerned about was I have to get my finger fixed because we got racing
Which country
this
was this
afternoon.
in?
Holland.
Yeah, but this kid might be like terminally injured because of something that you've done.
And I cycled off.
Yeah, I know. That's the point I'm trying to make to you, that we don't know in what condition this child is now in.
Well, I wasn't thinking about
Your
seeing
other
if he's
people.
fine, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're on the mend, and let's hope that kid's on the mend too.
What's your news then?
We're back in Sale, and last time I was in Sale, it was a disaster.
I know you left me. It was 8 o'clock. Callum said, "I'm just going out to get some fresh air," and he's never come back.
Oh dear.
I got absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
When was this?
Oh, about a month ago. We met up with Alex Dowdy, the ex.
Oh yes, he lives around the corner.
He li-
Very good.
Oh, your neighbours are you pretty much?
That's the day where you found Oyster Bar in Manchester.
Yeah, have you heard about this place in town?
I heard it on your podcast.
Oh, did
yeah.
you?
That's the day where Callum got obsessed with two quid pints or even cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, to my detriment, yeah, so I just had to leave. Like, I was looking at Dowdy and he was speaking to me and I just realised I couldn't hear a word he was saying. So I thought, I'll go and get some fresh air, and then I was on the tram before I knew it. Going
Yeah.
Brilliant. Sale does have a gin bar as well, which is fantastic.
Did we go to that?
I can't remember. What is it called?
Number 6.
I
Yeah,
don't
might
think
be
we
that.
went. I don't think we went there.
It's
We often ask our guests if they have any news or plugs or anything like that.
any news? I'm going to Amsterdam next weekend.
Oh,
That's news.
on a bender?
Girls trip, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Girls trip. It's
That'd be
been-
fun.
Yep. So weekend off, which ties in nicely to my recovery week. So
Very nice.
yeah, can't wait for that.
We're all actually off somewhere now. You're off to Switzerland.
I'm off to Switzerland in a few weeks.
Ooh.
Um,
I'm off to
Weekend.
Oslo in the next couple of weeks.
yeah,
Yeah, on the road again. And that concludes the news.
Good.
perfect.
Have you got any more news?
I haven't got news, but I actually got a question for you.
Oh yeah.
Are you starting the interview now?
Yeah, to kick off the.
On a side note, your news is the worst. You need to have more stuff going on in your life. Because usually it's just like...
Callum, I'm training. I'm very busy training. There's not much going on in training.
No,
I'm not.
I sit in the car and we're trying to come up with content for this podcast and you're like, yeah, clean my bedroom.
I've been to the gym and the velodrome every single day.
That's just proof of a dedicated athlete,
Yeah.
isn't it? Not much going on.
I mean, when I look at you, I think dedication.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, let's start the interview.
So to kick it all off, all the way from cycling, why are you inspired by Beyonce?
My favourite question, and you've kicked it off with a good one. Well, as other fellow Beyonce fans will know, whoever's listening,
Have they got a term for like the fan
it's
club?
the Beehive.
Beehive, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I'm officially in this Beehive. I don't know whether you have to get like...
Maybe it's just a state of mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to think that. She makes me feel like I can conquer the world. She does. There's nothing
Is that an
more I can
aspiration of
say. Yeah.
Is it the music that inspires you, or?
Yeah, her music, her work ethic. Have you not watched the Homecoming Netflix documentary? She's a hard worker. We can all take a lot from the way she
Have you watched
commits
the
to her
Callum?
work.
I haven't watched it. I'm actually not a massive Beyonce fan.
Oh no.
I know.
Let's end
I'm
it
sorry.
now.
Yeah, sorry. So
Let's end the
we'll-
podcast.
but
I do have a tattoo in honour of her as well.
No, you don't.
Did you know?
What- no, where?
It's very subtle,
Is
so
it?
you've probably seen it and you don't know. It's on my ankle. It's a lemon, and I've got three.
Oh
of
no, I
my-
knew about that. I didn't know that was a Beyonce thing.
We
Then.
got it on a Hindu, me and my best friends.
So watch out Amsterdam.
This is not Hindu's. And lemon because in honour of one of her greatest ever albums, Lemonade, of course,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
2016.
I guess you have to be in the beehive to get that connection.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we did think about getting a bee for Queen Bee, but then we just thought, lemon, why not?
Nice.
So that's that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about. Well, we were talking about tattoos last week with Steve Tate, because he's got a hell of a tattoo
yeah.
thing on the go.
Mm.
I mean, like, I don't think we went deep enough into it last week, but it's extensive. But it'd be good actually, I think, for listeners to explain Scotty's law within cycling, because it's a good kind of segue, I guess, that last week we were speaking to a stoker and today we're speaking to a pilot.
Yeah.
So can you explain for everyone who's listening now what your job is and what a pilot means?
Okay, so apart from it being a really cool name, and contrary to what a lot of people think, we do actually have to pedal a bike. Some people say, do you actually have to pedal? You just steer the tandem? And I say no. So my job is, I mean, the way I describe it is I ride the front of a tandem, I pilot a visually impaired rider, and I basically just ride my bike as hard as I can, but there's somebody else helping me along the way. So yes, I am in control of the steering and where we go, but ultimately it's a team effort. So I am the eyes of the bike.
Fair enough. But so you're now a pilot, but you weren't always a pilot.
No.
So what age did you first get in the team? Was it around about?
So I'd just finished college, so what's that, 18,
Yeah.
at the point when you move from home up onto the under-23 academy. I think it's now called the senior academy, isn't it now?
They change the name every year.
Yeah, it's annoying.
I
I've
know.
already told the guy who's in charge.
I say basically, if you want to make it in British cycling, just change the name of everything, and people will think it's you and different, and then you'll make a name for yourself.
But back when we were on, it was the under-23 academy, wasn't it? So I wasn't on the ODP or anything like that, but I had guested a few times, and then I applied to uni and to the academy because I was of age. And I think I must have done like a really decent standing lap at the nationals that year because they used to be in September, didn't they? And yeah, I got my letter to say I started university actually in Birmingham.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How far did you get into that?
So I did Freshers Week,
Yeah.
so that was great. One other week, and then I got my letter to say you've made it onto the academy, so that was that.
Experiencing Freshers Week is one of the things I think we've missed out on most not going to university, because like with the flats were in Fallowfield, and if you don't know where Fallowfield is in Manchester, it's like student town. And whenever Freshers Week went off, you knew about it. Like the place was just a kind of debaucherous mess for like 2 weeks basically. It was
Although I
amazing.
do feel we had our own little bits of Freshers
little
Week
bit,
at times,
yeah.
didn't we? But
You
yeah.
can't compare to uni.
No.
I actually remember that nationals when you had that breakthrough, because you were being coached by Lee Povey.
Yeah.
And I think it's weird that you actually went down the uni road, because I felt like everyone there kind of felt like you've done enough to get on the programme. So what made you have to...
Well, it was just the unknown, I wasn't sort of in the know with the coaches, I guess. I had no idea. And it was quite new with Lee as well, and yeah, the improvements were great, but we had the conversation, let's apply with the thought that you probably won't get on this year, but let's stick our nose, out there and let them know that you're interested, and we'll go for it next year. And then it was a total surprise. So next minute I was moving up to Manchester, sharing with Anna Blythe, who was obviously a really successful sprinter at the time in the academy flats, and
No relation to Adam.
no relation to Adam, no. And yeah, that was it. So I moved up on the Under-23 academy, and I was teammates with my hero Vicky Pendleton. Suddenly, it was all a bit quick.
It's quite strange that time. I don't know if you experienced it as well, but when you first moved down, it's I think for some athletes it comes to their detriment a little bit. It can be like their pinnacle. So it's like, I remember a few guys on the development team who ended up going full time, and they'd be training alongside like Chris Hoy and all the rest of it. And for them, that was like the pinnacle. Like they got the jersey, they were in that Manchester setup, and then maybe the hunger kind of died out a little bit. But it's such a big like influencing factor when you get down there and you're training with like the best in the world every single day.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, you know. I'll always remember, you know, doing like, it was like a rolling 5 Friday, and you know, I was crawling on the black line. I could hear Chris always shouting me on, you know, encouragement, and like that is a pinch me moment really, especially if you've grown up, you know, in the sport like we have.
Yeah,
it's quite a cool thing, isn't it?
So how did that time as a solo rider go?
So obviously, you know, it was great because I was finally, you know, living my dream, as we say cheesily. But I definitely felt a little bit out of my depth. You know, I knew that I was the weakest one, and I had a lot of catching up to do. So yeah, like I'd made enough, you know, improvement to get onto the squad in the first place. Because once you're there, as you know, you've got to keep improving, and I think I was aware of that. But I worked so hard, but it didn't happen for me in that first year. I knew as the year progressed that I was not up there with. You know, we went to Cottbus and I was just not there.
I think we all had the same kind of problem. You remember my first year, I was going slower than when I was a junior, and it didn't work for me. But I also had to learn English and
here we go,
and all these things. But I can see it with loads of academy riders. The first year they got on, they're pretty much going downhill because it's such a big change of you know, moving out of your parents' house, moving.
No, for me it was the opposite though.
Oh.
Yeah, I took it from like in the first like 6 months I went from like a 10.9 to a 10.6. But I think it's because I wasn't focused enough beforehand, I guess.
I was already a 10.4 rider as a junior.
Yeah, but some people do really struggle. So you only got a year as an able-bodied rider?
I just had the year, yeah, and of course, you know, you have targets, and I think it was nationals again, and I didn't hit them. It was simple as that, really. And
how do you feel like looking back at that? Because I think a year seems a bit harsh to me. Because a lot of guys get at least 3 until maybe the under 23 as well. Like that does seem a little bit sharp.
I think it's changing, isn't it? I think having chatted to Tom Stanton, who's now the Pathway guy, he's saying, you know, you do need a little bit more time to develop, don't you? I mean, and now I'm here 10 years later and I'm better than I ever was back then. But yeah, I guess at the time I was like, you know, I've not had enough time to try and do this. But so that's how I felt at the time. But now, you know, I would never change what's happened since.
Because it's really interesting, because I think, you know, speaking to a few riders that are still within the system, but, you know, maybe didn't feel like they got good enough of a chance, there's still a bit of an open question there. So if you speak to Kev Stewart, who was quicker than me when he got onto the full-time squad, when he failed to get on the full-time squad, he still doesn't really know the answer as to why he didn't get taken on. And there's a few arguments about, like, you know, he was always the size of a house, so the argument was he wasn't going to get any better, he was already quite developed. Yeah. But it does seem a bit of a, I mean, maybe it just shows the harshness and the cutthroat nature of the sport, that you only get 1 year, and with all those changes going on, like such as Phil said, moving away from home and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you know, and I guess it's a matter of timing as well, because I was around the time when Jess Varnish was coming up and Becky James, and you know, they were amazing at the time, so I was there or thereabouts, but I wasn't, you know, beating them.
But yeah, so it's interesting that you say from British cycling's point of view, they always want to see improvement, and I completely get that. But I guess from my interpretation, I mean, and maybe it shows it's changed as well, because I know, you know, there's quite a few people that came out from our early era. It kind of stopped with me a little bit, and Cian and Lewis, but around about that era, a lot of people felt as if they were kind of unfairly treated, I guess. But I guess with the progression angle, like you had a good World Cup result as well.
Yeah.
And I think most people think they want to see improvement year after year after year, but like to just get 1 year for a chance seems a bit brash.
It does, you know. I guess, you know, you can always look back and be like, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I'd been given longer. But equally, you know, British cycling, they make a lot of decisions and they're picking people and they're kicking people off. I hate that phrase, but ultimately they do come up with the goods. So, you know,
because on the rider commission, I always find it really interesting getting your and Pete Mitchell's perspective, because essentially you're the only two people in the squad that have gone through that process of being dismissed, I guess, or kicked off, or whatever you want to, or however you want to put it.
Yeah.
How do you think that's kind of shaped your career going forward, having gone through that process?
Well, I think, you know, it's sort of you sort of have to make the best of, you know, bad situations sometimes, and I don't want to put it like that, but it's it's what you make of it. So, you know, when I was kicked off the programme as a solo rider, we didn't have to do this, but me and my parents did want to meet in with Ian Dyer, who was my coach at the time, to ask, you know, why. Like, it was, you know, because as parents do, they're like, you know, this isn't long enough. You've not been given enough chance. You're going to be an Olympic champion, sort of thing.
Like
you know?
my mum would do that all the time. It's like, that's outrageous, and I'm like, Mum, you don't understand how it works.
Exactly.
Or like your mum all thinks
Yeah.
you're about to be chucked off every week.
Yeah. What do the coaches say? I was like, what?
Yeah.
What are they going to say?
It's like, Mum, I'm double Olympic champion. I'm not getting chucked off net. Well, you
Yeah.
might be. I don't know.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, you never know.
You're fine. And we asked for a meeting, and Ian, you know, said yes. We went back up to Manchester, and we had this meeting, and he was just really nice. He said, you know, we've seen you the whole year, and you've worked so hard. We appreciate all your efforts. And that's that, and went into a little bit more. And then he said, you know, Chris Ferber, who was the head of the paracycling squad at the time, he's really interested in you know, joining the para squad potentially as a tandem pilot. And I do wonder whether or not, if I'd asked for that meeting, whether or not I'd ever have known. I'm pretty sure Chris probably would have reached out to me, and I think, I don't know, I've not spoken to anyone else who said the same, but I think I was one of the first AB riders to be approached from the academy, you know, at a young age to do that, to switch across. So it's just, you just make, you know, the best out of that situation. And at the time, you know, I was 19, I had not fully accepted that I was off the squad, and I was like, no thanks, I'm not interested in this at all.
I think that's quite an interesting thing of where there's certain riders through the team, and it's probably like testament to your character a little bit, because, you know, it's like what Ian was saying. He's like, you're working hard, we can see the value in you as a person, so we're going to keep you on. And I think that's funny how some riders end up staying within the BC system, because they kind of are almost looked as being indisposable, I guess. But I think the way that you conduct yourself around track is really quite a good example for a lot of athletes coming through. It's like,
thank you.
Well, no, it is. It's like being professional to the staff, being polite, being like challenging as well, but in a constructive way. Yeah. I mean, these are all things that Phil could learn. But like, no, I can see why they brought you on. Did you? I guess does that kind of come naturally, or do you think, like, is there like a professional kind of Helen Scott at work, here we go kind of thing?
Well, I'm not sure anyone listening will think that I was a professional.
Well, I know the answer to this, but it's for everyone listening here. Yeah.
No, I think it comes with confidence, doesn't it? You know, when I first joined the squad, you know, I don't think I was the same back then in track centre as I am now. You know, it comes with learning and you know, working with the people and getting to know everybody, and just becoming comfortable in yourself and confident in yourself. And I was not a confident rider. You know, I'd gone from a decent national level rider to basically just being at the bottom of some international pile that included the best in the world ever. So, you know,
because that was a different era for women's British cycling as well, because at that time they were dominating.
Yeah.
So I think looking up earlier, you got a fourth at that World Cup, and like the women's team now would like bite your arm off to get that kind of result now.
The team sprint only got in 2008, got put into the Olympics, so.
Well, it was early days in the sport, I guess.
Yeah, it was early days.
Yeah.
But still, like, it shows how groundbreaking that women's squad was. So, and like, maybe this is a bit of an unfair question, but, you know, as one of the riders who's been on the team, you know, for 11 years or something like that, what do you think the women's team is kind of missing? I guess, like, what would take it to get it back to that level, to get it back to the golden days of Vicky P and all that kind of stuff, just tailing it up year after year after year.
It's mad, isn't it? I think it's getting better now. You know, we've got some young ones coming through like Blaine Davis and Millie Tanner, who are absolutely smashing it. But I think I just don't know. The rest of the world has just moved on, hasn't it, massively? And, you know, we're still putting out times that maybe back then would have been amazing, but it's just not enough at the moment. But obviously totally rooting for them all to smash it. I don't know what the key is.
I think the team needs a leader. Needs one woman that comes in and just
maybe
it's like the best in the world, and then all the other girls can look up at it. Because I think we've been struggling so much. I don't think a lot of the girls believe in themselves. I think they need someone to look up to and just...
Well, like a Chris Hoy, Vicky P kind of figure.
Yeah, and just so they can believe in themselves and...
Which is ironic, because people who know Chris and know Vicky know that couldn't have been further from the truth sometimes. Like, those guys could be totally insecure about any kind of result they get. It's quite a kind of fake it till you make it kind of environment a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's no, that's really interesting. So like going back to when you were chucked, basically, was there real determination? Not I said that the wrong way. When you were
It was that.
let go,
Yeah.
was there a real aspiration to think, I've invested this much, I want to keep it going?
Well, yeah, there was a little bit of that, and there was also a little bit of like fear, what do I do now, sort of thing. I've given up my university place. I'd got onto this team, and I thought I was going to be on it forever, sort of thing, naively. So it was a little bit of that as well. Yeah, and you're 19, and and I remember feeling really ashamed going back to my friends and back home and saying I'm not on the squad anymore, and you just think, what on earth am I going to do now?
I remember there was Jeff Cook, who you probably didn't have much to do with, but you had a lot to do
Jeff,
with.
Yeah.
But I remember he always summed it up really nicely, and John Norfolk did a bit as well. He was like, whatever time you leave the program, but even if you're on ODP or talent team, you're still doing way more than what your friends are doing back home. And that's still like an incredible achievement to be there, like to be on a national team, especially as competitive it was when you were back then. It's weird that you could still go home and feel that sense of shame almost.
Yeah, you do, because it's so unknown to like all my friends. They're not really into it. They only know it because of me doing it, and they're thinking, "Oh, this is brilliant." She's wearing Great Britain kit. She's coming.
Did you wear it to school?
I may have gone round to my friend's house a few times in the skin suit, but they think it's amazing. Then suddenly they're like, "Oh, you're not actually that good now." So they obviously
I don't think they think that. I think
they probably didn't know.
Because I remember being like 14 and I picked up like a bronze at like a youth omnium or something like that, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, you're the best person ever going and the best athlete we've ever known." And I think we just kind of end up judging ourselves by our own standards a lot of the time.
Totally. That's obviously what it was. They couldn't care less whether I won.
You compare yourself to people as well, and you just want to be the best one there. So
yeah, within that environment. Yeah. So Chris Ferber approached you and said, "We'd like to take you on." Was that how it went, or how did that go?
Not exactly. So he said, "We're really interested in looking at you to pilot the tandem." But it wasn't a case of switching from one squad to the next. Obviously, in the Paralympic setup, the shortest event at the Paralympics is the kilometre time trial, and in the Paralympics you have to do 2 events. So he explained to me, you're going to have to do another event, and at that moment there was no sprint in the Paralympics, so you're going to have to do a 3-kilometre pursuit as your second event.
And to explain that to everyone back home, listening, not back home, I don't know why I'm saying this, I'm just in Sale. But to people listening now, the furthest you would have done at that point would have been 500 metres?
500 metres, yeah.
So it's double.
It was double the distance. So he says, we can't take you on unless we know you can do both of those distances. They already had Ellen Hunter on the programme as a pilot, who was reigning Paralympic champion with Aileen McGlynn from Beijing. So they needed to know that I was going to be better than her, basically. And, he said, right, I'm going to give you some training for the next 6 months, and we're going to do a ramp test. I don't know whether either of you two have ever done a ramp test.
No, I haven't.
I have.
It's horrific, isn't it?
It's basically just where it gets harder and harder and harder and harder on this like bike in the lab. And you go to the point of exhaustion, basically.
Yeah.
I quite enjoy them, though. It's kind of like it's a real... I think also, maybe not you, but most cyclists, you as in Phil, most cyclists have this like urge to see how deep they can push themselves. And in a kind of like real painful kind of way. It's a really interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a real marker of where you're at.
It is, and it is to exhaustion. But then when you speak to people and you say, how long did you last? And they say like 15 minutes, and you get to minute 5 and you're like, oh my god, I'm dying a death. I can't go any longer. You're thinking, I'm not cut out for this. And simply I did one test and it just wasn't good enough, and they were like, really, like, we're so sorry, Scotty, you're not great at this.
But I'm glad you say it is great, because that really is, to sum it up, like, you weren't great, but you're still good.
Yeah, it may have been
like
okay.
one of the best in the country still at that point.
Yeah, potentially. So then, they wanted to give me another shot, and shout out to Sarah Story, because she basically helped me to train for this test, to pass this test, basically. And, I did it again, and I got it. I got whatever result they wanted me to anyway. And then I was back on the squad, moved back to Manchester in an identical flat a couple of floors below, so back in with you lads, I think it would have been. Maybe not you, Cal, but certainly you,
we
Phil.
were top floor in the bachelor pad.
Oh yeah, we were down below. It wasn't, demoted.
No, they were good times in the flat. So I remember the walls were so thin, and the bedrooms were next to each other, and I was sharing with Cian and Maddie, and one day I was just lying there in bed. We both gone to bed, and I just went, Cian, and he went, yeah. He was in the room next door, and I was like, oh god, like this is me.
I remember Lewis Oliva playing the drums until 2 or 3 in the morning, and Hannah Mayo, the endurance girls, the lift below us, kept knocking on the door at 3 a.m. in the morning, telling Lewis off.
That's brilliant.
I got shit off of Laura Kenny, previously trot, because she said that I walked too loud, and she lived below me.
That happened to me with Hannah
did it?
Mayo as well, yeah. So I
mean,
can
like
always tell when you're going to make a cup of tea, Scotty, because I
Really?
can hear you walking across your flat.
They were terrible floods.
Well, it was so close, and the most annoying thing was that like we didn't get free Wi-Fi back then, like all the kids do now, and so I was the one that opened my wallet and thought,
No. We had a dongle first that we got given by British Cycling
we had one.
Oh,
we had,
yeah.
we had a single dongle between 5 boys
with like 500
with,
megabytes.
with
on it.
500 megs for the whole month, and Phil would thrash through that in about 20 seconds.
Playing World of Warcraft.
Playing World of Warcraft and other activities. So yeah, I opened my wallet and got Wi-Fi. But Cian back then was such a nice, lovely young man that he gave the Wi-Fi code to everyone else. So maybe you were part of this as
I
well.
might
but
have been, yeah.
Basically, everyone in the flat was using my. I was like, why is it so fucking slow? And then it turns out that Cian had just been giving it to everyone because he wasn't paying for it either.
That's
But anyway.
funny.
But those were good times in those flats. I think we've maybe lost something of that a little bit. I agree they probably weren't the best place to move down to in the first instance, because your two closest things were Pandora's, and if you Google Pandora's Fallowfield, you'll find out what that is. And the second closest one was Witherspoon's.
Yeah.
And then after that it was Chicken King, McDonald's, and all that kind of stuff. Like, it was really pretty much a disaster place to put people, but they were some of the best years as well.
Yeah. It's good times when you forget to lock your door and then suddenly random people walk into your
Walk
flat.
in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've heard a few of those as well.
Yeah.
I got put through a wall.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah. Have you heard about this?
I'm not sure.
Well, because the walls are so thin. Like, Lewis rugby tackled me one day, and I literally just went through the wall.
Wow.
You two used to have a lot of fallouts, to be fair.
Yeah, we did have a lot of fallouts. We get on well now, just for short spaces of time, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, you moved up again back on the para squad. So how did that? So I remember watching your TED talk earlier today. Shout out to
yes.
Helen Scott on TED.
TED talk, when I didn't even know how big a TED talk was.
Yeah, and you were saying that your kind of knowledge and kind of experience of the Paralympics was quite slim at that point. So how did that transpire between thinking, I want to be the best in the world at the Olympics, to saying I want to be the best in the world at the Paralympics?
Yeah, it was strange. As I say, the para squad and AB squad, we all trained together. So I already had friends on the para squad before I'd got onto the squad, like Jodie Cundy, Sarah Story, and Barney, of course. So although I knew what they'd achieved, I can't even remember ever having watched a Paralympics, which is awful to say. And so then, the mindset comes like, okay, so now I'm looking at London 2012 Paralympic Games instead of, not that I thought I was going to be going to the Olympic Games, but that was the switch. And I can't ever remember thinking anything of it, really. It's just, that's what I'm doing now. That's my goal, and I want to get there.
Okay, yeah, because I think to again, to make it really simple for people listening, it's like you don't have any kind of disability at all.
No.
You're basically there to try and as a pairing win a gold medal, basically.
Yeah,
With the
a
person in
team
the back.
effort. Yeah, for sure.
So what year was that you were taken back on? How long did you have before London 2012?
So that was 2010. So like middle of 2010. So of course that was 2 years before the games. Yeah.
So guns blazing from that point.
Pretty much, but as I say, I think Ellen still was on the squad, so there was some selection processes happening, and I think if I remember correctly, that was for like the first World Championships that I went to in Montichiari in 2011. So then I think from that point I was sort of the chosen pilot, I guess, for the sprint bike.
The selection points are the really interesting one, because it seems like there's quite a lot of contention. Not contention, but it's really difficult to decide who's the fastest pilot, especially back then, because it's as you said, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was one power output. Like how was that for getting ahead of them? Because obviously as a solo rider, it's just based on your times and the fastest goes.
Yeah.
But for this, it's a little bit more subjective. Would you say?
Yeah, a little bit, and it's still a point of contest now. You know, we've obviously got 2 male sprint tandems, and we're trying to decide which is the fastest pairing and things like that. The selection process was strange, and it was simply one person does a time trial with the stoker, which was Aileen McGlynn at the time, and the next one does the same with Aileen, and whoever goes fastest, that's clearly the difference between the 2 bikes, sort of thing. And I think that's exactly what we did, and that's how they picked them. Yeah.
So how did you get on with that first pairing with? Because obviously you've been going. So with Steve last time, he's only ever ridden with Duggleby basically.
Yeah.
So how did that work out with switching with the previous pilot to working with Aileen and stuff like that? Did you guys kind of gel quite well together from the off, or was it a little bit of a work in progress?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Aileen was obviously very experienced. She'd been to Athens and Beijing and won at both. So she was very much like, all she cared about really was, are you going to get me a gold medal in London, sort of thing. And I was just like this 20-year-old, like, oh, I hope so. I don't know.
Yeah, because she's a good bit older at that point.
Yeah. So, it was fine, really. She was, she's quite good at showing me sort of how it all happened and things like that. But as I say, because we had an age gap, we weren't best friends. So in terms of the friendship element, it wasn't perhaps as good as it could have been, or, for example, like what Sophie and I are now. And Aileen was very much like, we must win and break a world record every time we get on the bike.
Well, she did in warm-up sometimes.
Yeah.
Broke another world record.
I remember Anna Blythe used to just think it was hilarious, and in the warm-up, I think Anna had switched to the endurance squad at that point, and we were riding round, and she'd go past in her line, and she'd look right down and go, Aileen, and Aileen would look up and she'd go, have you got a world record today? So it was funny. But I guess, that was her expectation, and I had to fill it, I guess, because Ellen and her had been so successful. So
it kind of came full
enough.
circle. Aileen and I ended up being teammates at Gold Coast 2018. We had a little minor fallout there. Actually, it was quite funny. So I remember we were living in this Airbnb above a shop, and it was really difficult for dope control to get there, and there was all these like locked doors, and it was really hard to get through. And obviously I'm quite passionate about anti-doping, and I wanted to make sure that the testers could get in. But so I'd make sure all the doors were open, and then all of a sudden they'd just be locked the next day.
Oh.
And then I'd be like, oh, what's happening here? So then I'd open them again, and then we had like a team meeting, and I was like, the door's staying fucking open. Like, no, like we need to let the dope testers in here, all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm not missing a test because the door's locked. And then all of a sudden Aileen like pips up and says, oh yeah, it was me. I've been locking the doors. And I was like, why? And then she was like, first of all, it was a theft. It was like a theft issue. So she thought someone was going to come in and like,
oh god,
steal us all away in the night. And then second of all,
She's right.
she is right.
She's right.
And then second of all, it was because of a fire risk. Basically, she didn't want to be trapped inside this Airbnb as it turned into a towering inferno. Basically,
I 100% agree with her.
yeah, of course you would, because you love to disagree with everything. So yeah, and then obviously like you got to London, and that was probably quite a big success.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's our most celebrated games, London 2012. But it's funny how you say a success, because I didn't see it like that at all going to the games.
Well, you got a silver and a bronze.
We won a silver and a bronze, yeah. But looking back now, having been to Rio, I remember thinking, I didn't think of it at the time, but I know that I wasn't ready at all to go to a game. Certainly not a home games, the pressure that was put on us, especially having watched the Olympic guys and them winning basically everything that was going. We were going there, and gold is always the expectation, isn't it, from our team, which is fine. But we were nowhere near a gold medal like at that year's. We won 3 silver medals, I think, in LA at that World Championships, which again was like great, but we weren't, Steph Morton was on the front of the tandem at that point, and we were nowhere near. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to do a massive surprise ride here and win. Like, I don't know why anyone ever thought we were going to win a gold medal, because I just don't feel I was ready for it, and it was so overwhelming, and I don't think I performed well. I think I crumbled a little bit under the pressure, although we got the ride out. I don't think it was a PB actually, you know, and with all the kit and support we'd got, to me, I felt that was a bit of a failure on my part.
So how did that tee up with Aileen basically saying we need to get a gold and we need to break a world record? Because, I mean, obviously that's, like, I would still call that successful games.
Yeah, and, you know, and really it was, isn't it? You know, as I say about my friends and that, you know, they were all in the stands and my family, and I looked up and they were just jumping up and down. They didn't care whether I won a single thing. I could have fallen off the bike and they just thought it was brilliant. Me being there, you know, what a place. But I remember going up to the stands afterwards after getting my silver medal, and I ran to my dad and I just sobbed in his shoulder and he cried in mine. And I was crying because I was so sad, like I'd not won a gold medal, but he was crying because he was so happy that I'd won a medal. And I'll never forget that, you know. And I remember thinking, like, I just don't ever want to feel like this again. All my teammates have won a gold medal. And all you'd won a gold medal, Phil, and everybody had won a gold medal, and I'd got a silver, and I was like, "This isn't what."
But in that split moment, did your dad think you were crying with happiness as well?
Probably. This is probably going to be news to him when he hears it.
Oh, really?
And it was just all overwhelming, wasn't it? You know, the whole thing. Yeah, it was just mad.
So do you think it was mainly a mental challenge there, or do you think physically you weren't ready?
I think a bit of both, to be honest. Yeah, a little bit of both. I hadn't quite. I think, you know, the year that I was on the academy and I say I wasn't ready, I think it's taken me up to maybe 2014-15 to really know my body and what works and what doesn't. So I just physically and emotionally wasn't ready for it. Although I had a lot of support from friends around me like Sarah and Jodie, who'd been to many games and been so successful. For me, I wasn't ready.
I mean, arguably Jodie had a worse time at that specific games.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, YouTube it. Yeah. But talking about knowing your body is like a really important thing, because like you're like Phil, you're kind of known for the less is more approach. But that's always worked really well for you.
Yeah. So I know when I get tired, and I know when my times start dropping off, I just need to quit the session and go home. And you know, in the past it used to work for me, and then I tried a different approach where I said to myself, I didn't need to push through it, because you always get told when you're younger you need to push through these barriers. Even if you go slow, you need to keep training. And I tried this method and it just went terribly for me, and it just doesn't work. So for me personally, I need to just do what I feel like works, and it used to work in the past. And
but you were probably quite unusual in terms of being someone who seemed to understand their body immediately.
Yeah,
like,
you guys used to laugh at me because
we used to find it hilarious. Yeah, because you were the laziest cyclist.
I know. But as soon as I saw my times dropping off in training, and it's probably, you shouldn't take it as an advice, I used to just pack my bags, go home, come back the next day and just PB again.
Yeah.
And it used to work for me, just be fresh every single session. And then and I was quite happy, like mentally, and because I was performing every training session.
You got all this stick, and really you were just the most clever guy in the world. Really.
Well, so we were like ripping him to pieces, but like in the back of your mind there was actually a little bit of like respect there, because you were like, he knows himself already. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of having my hand held through this whole process, which British cycling is quite happy to do, especially on the academy. But you were kind of straight up pretty confident with it all, saying, no, I will not train today.
Yeah, I think it was mainly because there was no one really competing for my spot, so I didn't have the pressure of losing my man one spot, so I could do what I wanted pretty much. Where you were fighting between four man three,
all different positions, yeah.
So you know, you had to do what they said because you wanted that spot.
Well, and it's also because I kind of trusted in the process. I think if I was as dead certain as you that I needed less, then I would have taken it. But I think that's one of the great things, and what makes you a good athlete is that you know your body, and that takes a lot of time for some people to learn.
Yeah.
I would say even now, like my whole career was pretty inconsistent. Like you'd get the odd year where it'd be spectacular and you'd win everything, and then next year you'd be going like a bag of shit, and you just couldn't really know why. Which is probably why it's quite frustrating having just a single year as well, because it's like it's not like underperforming at work and you can just work harder. Like it's such a really weird kind of mindfuck in a way. It's kind of like, you know, if you want to go better, it's not just about training harder. It's about knowing yourself better, I guess.
Yeah, a year is not enough. Definitely not.
Definitely not. So if you're PD and you're faced with Helen Scott, she's going to be kept on for another year.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Who knows what happens?
But that's an interesting point you raised about the British cycling team as well, because I know Vicky UP has talked about it. where she said, she'd won multiple world titles, but didn't really feel established in that team until she won Olympic gold.
Mm-hmm.
Was that kind of a similar kind of thing you were feeling in that era as well? Like, it didn't really matter what you win. It was all about the Olympics, and until you had that gold medal on your neck, you hadn't really made it, I guess.
You mean in the year of being on the academy?
No, I mean when you were trying. So obviously you were disappointed with London result.
Yeah.
It's kind of that whole thing.
Yeah, I think as well a big thing, and I've only just sort of realised this over the last few years. It was sort of on the men's side, for example, in a kilometre time trial, in the able-bodied side of things, there is a kilometre time trial. So the times that the tandems can put out, they can directly compare to sort of the AB, and they're always wanting to beat them. And I think maybe Rothers and Neil have done that, broken the world record, and now are the fastest bike ever, which is amazing. And the times that Aileen and I were producing, well, there was no comparison really to anyone else, because females do 500 metres, so there's no comparison in that way. But our standing lap and our first 500 metres, you can compare that, and it just wasn't really up there. And I think in our flying 200, that is in the World Championships, although it's not in the Paralympics. I think it was like mid 11s, low 11s, and that really wasn't in a great comparison to the females. Whereas now, years later, Sophie and I are, our world record is 10.6 in the flying 200, which is fairly comparable to the best girls in the world now. And our kilometre, we've knocked off a fair few seconds. So now I said to Sophie that, last year, maybe at the Gold Coast when we broke that world record, I said to her, I feel like we're now sort of worthy of where we are. Isn't that so strange to say that?
Yeah, because obviously, as you said, with your friends, you're worthy just even if you take to the field.
Yeah.
But with the team, you're not worthy until you've got that medal, I guess, or that you're actually producing. Or it sounds like for you, it's a bit more about the times.
I think so. And, when you're around, like you guys were just incredible in Rio, and, you're smashing it all the time, and you want to...
Not all the time.
Well, maybe not, but when it matters, for sure. You want to put out times that your teammates look at and think, oh, like they're pretty good. Yeah, and you want that. And at the Gold Coast, we felt that, and I don't know whether, I really want to ramble now, but there was a moment after we'd finished and me and Sparky were walking out the velodrome, and I bumped into Anna Mears, and she said to me...
Well, one of the most successful female sprinters of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said to me, oh my God, you girls were incredible, you're amazing. And I was just like, no, you're amazing. This is my childhood hero as well. And we were just having like this little encounter, and I said, oh my God, like I've got to get a photo with you before I leave, can we find your name on the velodrome? It's the Anna Mears velodrome. Yeah, sure. We walked to the outside and we had this photograph, and she said, oh, you must pass on, well done to Sophie, you were so smooth out there, like you're amazing. And and for me that was that, wow, oh my God, Anna Mears is telling us that we're amazing, sort of thing. And Carly McCulloch and Steph Morton both came over to us and said, girls, that was incredible. And like that, just because we're not around you, we don't compete with you guys, it's only at the Commonwealth Games that we compete with you guys. So to hear that from some of the girls we really respect was really lovely to hear,
Yeah, so final question on London then, I guess.
Okay.
So you got a silver and a bronze.
Yeah.
So the silver was in the 3K pursuit.
The silver was in the kilo.
No, sorry, the bronze was in the 3K pursuit.
Yes. Correct.
And the silver was in the kilo.
Yep.
Was there something about the bronze medal that made you... was that in some ways a bit more of an achievement because that was further off your kind of natural ability, I guess?
Yeah, a little bit. It was a sort of an unexpected medal, really, because we'd sort of focused mainly on the kilometre time trial. It was a shame because we were actually in the bronze medal final with our teammates, Laura Turnham, which is now Laura Facky, and Fiona Duncan. So that was a bit of a shame because that was their...
Police lady Fiona.
Yeah.
She's scary. She's put me in my place a couple of times.
Has she?
Oh, yeah. You don't mess around with policewoman Fiona.
No, she was fab. So, yeah, that was a shame to be racing against them because that was more their sort of event, but they still did have 2 events on the road to do. And, yeah, we were in the bronze medal final against them, and I think it was a really tight match, actually.
And that's what everyone wants to see, of course, tight racing.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. So then I guess by that point you came over with a gold and silver. A silver and a bronze. Was that kind of unfinished business, I guess. There was no doubt about continuing on to Rio from that point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As I say, I remember thinking, I never want to feel like this again. I want a gold medal. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do. But after London, after a break and things like that, Aileen retired. I think 2013, maybe
For the
year
first
after.
or the sixth time, or
Maybe that was the first.
First, okay.
Of many retirements. And then there was this young pup
that's
coming
not a
up.
dig, by the way. I love athletes who retire like 6-7
Okay,
times.
well,
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I keep fucking around with people on Instagram saying, "Oh, the comeback starts now," when I'm in the gym or something like that. And some people do message saying, "Oh, what's this about a comeback?" And it's nothing.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But yeah, so then at the time there was a young pup coming up called Sophie Thornhill. So she must have been about 10 at the time. So eventually we began training together.
And your relationship with Sophie was probably in quite stark contrast to the relationship with Aileen, because, as you said, she was a lot younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel sometimes, from what I've seen with you two, you're almost a bit of an example for her, I guess. Like it's a real close bond that you two have.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Callum, because I'm not sure she would agree that I'm the example for her.
Well, no, I think maybe it just comes with age, that she's kind of growing into herself a bit more. But
Yeah.
I think definitely it seems like, it's more than just the tandem pairing, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I'm 100% sure that part of the reason why we've been successful together so far is because we get along so well. We are like sisters, as you know, when you're going to races together. And I don't know whether you guys always shared with the same person, but because Sophie and I ride on a tandem together, we're always together. We share together, and you do become sisters. And we are closer in age than Aileen and I were, so we became really, really good friends, and we still are, now.
But it's a bit like a younger sister thing, though, I guess, because you've got a big family as well. Did it fall into that? Did it feel quite into that category?
Yeah, I guess so. And obviously, the more you get to know someone, the more natural you can be. So I think she just thinks I'm just ridiculous now, and I can see her rolling her eyes sometimes at me. I just treat her like my family.
No, that's pretty special, because I think that was one of the best things about us. We're gonna get a bit soft here, but this is the good thing about us winning together, was that it was, if you can do it with your mates and people that you would definitely continue to see after cycling or something, there's something more special about that.
Yeah, and it's really special, although obviously I loved riding on my solo bike, riding on a tandem, especially with somebody who you're mates with and you're in it together, you sat next to each other, just before you go up, knowing that you're on that bike together, it's a special thing. It really is.
So with London not going the way you wanted it as well, did you take more of a driving seat? Basically, in the lead up to Rio, did you feel a bit more of an established rider and you could direct what you wanted to do a bit more?
Yeah, I think, and you Phil, you can probably attest this, go into a games, with that experience of a games situation, you're going in with you're a bit calmer about the whole thing, I think, because you know what to expect. And we did have the Commonwealth Games as well in Glasgow in 2014 as a pairing to do that together. So that was great for Sophie as her first sort of multi-sport.
And
event.
we definitely didn't put you to shame at Commonwealth Games at Glasgow 2014. We had a complete and utter shocker.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, we got absolutely spanked by the Oceanic nations. I think Jason, who was our fastest qualifier? Was it you?
Was me, yeah.
All right, don't be shy about it.
Fifth or sixth?
You meant to say, oh, maybe it was. I think it was me.
No, it was
Yeah.
me. We talked about it last podcast.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
we
a few
did, yeah.
podcasts
Oh,
ago. Yeah, it was me, and we weren't going that way. I think I did a 10-1, high 10-1, and the fastest qualifier was Glates or something with a 9.8.
Yeah, the Aussies, the Kiwis, and the
It's a big
Malaysians were
gap.
all ahead of us, and then the home nations at home games were basically just nowhere near, nowhere near at all. So yeah, how did that kind of manifest? I guess so. The Commonwealth Games, did that feel a little bit like a kind of redemption for you a little bit, because that was a home games again?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And, we'd sort of moved on the time at that point. It wasn't a world record, but Sophie and Rachel James had set that in Aguas Calientes, so we hadn't broken the world record, but we'd moved on the time a little bit more at that point. So that was quite a nice thing. And yeah, I mean, our biggest competitors there at the time were Aileen and Louise, who competed in this year.
So you were up against your old tandem stoker.
Yeah, and Louise Haston, she's a really good friend of mine. So that was, it was nice to compete on a massive stage because it was a great Commonwealth Games, wasn't it? Really, it was a home game.
The sun was shining.
The sun was shining all week.
Yeah.
Got a great tan.
Some people got sunburned as well. Anyway, but no, So I guess that's where you kind of feel like you're really kind of got your feet solidly in the ground by that point. And was Sophie kind of. Do you feel like you're almost like a little bit of a coach there at that point because of the age gap a little bit?
A little bit, as I say, I tried to, I remember chatting to her about this, talking to her about, okay, so this is the Commonwealth Games village. The Paralympic Games village is much bigger than this. It's, there's more people, there's this, there's that. So that was all for the preparation for Rio because, as I say, I felt very overwhelmed in London and I didn't want Sophie to feel the same as me. So it was all with the thought of 2 years ahead, yeah. So
again, going back to your TED Talk, I'm going to plug it again.
Oh.
I remember you said something that was quite, maybe a little bit unusual compared to some leaders. So in Australia, there's Stephanie Morton, who's now tailing it up in the able-bodied team. Like one of the most accomplished sprinters on the scene at the moment. And I guess one of the questions you would ask quite routinely was, okay, so you've had a pretty successful Paralympic Games. Will you ever move back to able-bodied? And you said no. Mm-hmm. So where did that kind of sit with you? Having come from someone who kind of said, I've to be brutally honest, I've never really watched Paralympic racing, to being at the point where like, this is where I belong. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, and you've just said it, Callum. Like, this is where I belong. It's as simple as that. I love what I do. I love racing the tandem, and I love racing it with Sophie. It's not about racing the tandem. It's racing it with somebody who we flow well together. People ask me all the time, would you go back? And and my honest answer is I don't think I would be good enough. I mean, maybe if I'd never gone on the tandem and had all this time and not been sort of let go after a year. But when I first went on the tandem and it was with Neil Facky to have a go, I do remember thinking, like, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, I love it. How Phil was saying about moving the bike around, it was scary. Like, that's what I love. I love that.
Was there something about a team element? Like, did you always feel more comfortable being part of a team opposed to being an individual rider? Because in able-bodied track sprinting is very much an individual pursuit, I feel. Like, even though we have a team sprint, it's definitely like, you can pick it to pieces to the point where, like, I was man 3, I was often letting the team down. And it was pretty obvious where the weak point in the squad was. Even though it was a team event, you can basically say, oh, Callum was shit, Phil was good, Jason was good. Like, was there something about kind of going through that experience together?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure whether, as I say, I feel different about being on a solo or on the bike because, of course, as a pilot, I feel like there is an added pressure with me that I have to make sure the bike's on the black line, that I'm not hitting loads of pads, that I keep Sophie safe. And we've had some, every mistake that is made on the bike in training, in racing, is the pilot's fault. It's never Sophie's fault. So that's a pressure, getting out the gate straight. That's me steering that. Yes, Sophie has to be as still as she can for me, but so I still feel like if there are any mistakes, they're going to be looking at the pilot.
Does she ever give like little bits of input though? Because it's not like blind football where people are totally blindfolded, and Sophie's not completely blind.
No.
Does she ever think, or have you ever ridden with a stoker, who's gone, oh, we should go now, Scotty, and then like tries to steer the bike a little bit? Yeah.
Matthew Rotherham, actually, at the National Tandem Champs last weekend, he steered me a few times, but not really. No, as I say, it's because Sophie is able to see a little bit when we are in a match sprint and we're sort of winding up the laps. I'll just, if I can't see, because obviously the tandem is a bit longer and you've got a person to look round as well, I'll just say like, "You're good, we're good, Soph," and she'll be like, "Yeah." But Sophie, I'm really grateful to, because she trusts me. She does trust me, and so she'll just respond to me. But I do say to her, if you do see something that I clearly haven't, just shout at me or press on the pedals, and I'll respond. Funny you say that we were on a training camp. It was pre-London actually in Spain, and we stayed. It was a bit of an altitude camp. This was with Aileen, and we stayed at the top of this mountain, and it sort of anyway was down pretty much. And we were going down this hill on the tandem, and as you know, these tandems can get going when they're going downhill with the weight.
Yeah, Steve Bate told us last week he had a double blowout at 50 miles an hour.
Oh, it's scary. Like, you go scary fast. And I do remember Aileen shouting. I could hear her through the wind, like, slow down, slow down. she wasn't happy at all.
Did you slow down?
No. Pretended I couldn't
What's
hear
that,
her.
Aileen?
Sorry, Aileen.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Can't hear you.
So your lead up to Rio was that totally different compared to the lead up to London? Was everything starting to click, or was it a little bit of a rocky road again?
It was a rocky road. Yeah,
Right.
It was a rocky road. So from 2014, Sophie had won. I wasn't selected for 2014 World Champs. Rachel James was to go to Mexico. Sophie won there. That was her first world title, I think. 2015 we won together again. So Sophie had a couple of years. 2014 Commonwealth we'd won. So Sophie had a couple of years of being completely dominant. And then we rocked up to the 2016 World Championships. Of course, it was 5 months before Rio, and we got beat, and we got beat bad. I don't know why, but the timing system was right on the floor, right next to where you were sat. And because Sophie was defending champion, we were up last for the kilometre time trial. And the Dutch girls rocked up, and they put out a time that no tandem had ever put out at sea level before. It was like 3 seconds faster than they'd ever gone. And I remember looking at that time on the floor going, here we go again, here we flipping go again. We got up and we knocked like a tenth off our time at the time, which was a 1 minute 7.4. They'd done a 1:06 dead. And I remember sat in the pits after that with my head in my hands and thinking, it's going to happen again. Like, I'm not meant to win a gold medal at a Paralympic Games. You know, we're 5 months away and we're a second and a half off the pace again.
So how does that work with... Because obviously you and Sophie are really close, and 2014 Commonwealth Games kind of forged that friendship and that bond.
Yeah.
How does that work when you bring in a new pilot?
In terms of...
Well, because Rachel James was piloting her.
Yeah. So that was a case of... the squad just wanted to see if there was anyone else out there who could ride the bike faster. So Rachel James was brought on and tested, and we had a trial, and yeah, she was better in the trial, so she went.
And is it can't be as clinical as that, because obviously, you know, I remember sitting trackside, people have always talked about a little bit of bias, like not to point this at you, but there'd be a little bit of like, say the person on the back of the tandem might go a little bit harder for the person that they want to ride with.
Maybe, yeah. I don't think at all, like you say, Sophie would do that, but perhaps. And these trials were weird. It was like a standing 500 and a rolling kilo. We had a speedo on, so we knew we were coming in at the same speed as each other. And I think I had a faster rolling kilo, but Rachel had a faster 500 meters, and they obviously thought, okay, well, we'll go with that, I guess. And that was that. But they, of course, that was at altitude. So they broke the world record. They went 1 minute 5.9 at that point. So that was a world record then. But then I think we went 1 minute 8.0 or 1 in Glasgow, and I think they worked out then like the difference at sea level I remember John Norfolk coming to me and just saying, from that time we know that you're the best pilot now.
Oh, right,
and
okay.
that was sort of that.
Yeah.
They'd obviously worked out the difference between altitude and sea level.
Because it must, like, we've talked about, you having no competition in 2012, 2016, but like dealing with that competition internally and just fighting to get that jersey on your back is a different kind of fight to just getting to the games. Oh,
yeah. And I think that was the best thing that could have happened to me, having that, because up to that point, I'd gone a fair few years, 3 or 4 years without anyone to push me. So that was another turning point. These things at the time you hate. You think, oh God, I really can't be doing with this. I'm trying my hardest as it is, and now I haven't even got a jersey on my back yet.
And you don't have many races as well to compete in, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
There was a time you didn't have World Championships for like a few years or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we were just like twiddling our thumbs in track centre and seeing all you go off racing, and we were just at the velodrome all year round.
Well, Phil was on his holidays.
Yeah.
because we couldn't qualify for the second day, so he'd just go off and see.
Went there for one round of team sprint. That's it.
All the way to New Zealand for 250 meters.
Went to see Hobbiton.
Hobbiton,
a
that
good
was
one.
nice.
that's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good shout.
Okay, so then, so you were bringing it back to the 2016 World Champs, and you got your head in your hands. What turned it around?
We worked so hard. Like, you know, when you think you're working hard and then you turn it up another level. John Peck came to me that day and he said, we're going to do everything we can to get you back on the top step. And do you know what they did? We sat down, John Norfolk was our coach at the time, and we just had really difficult conversations, you know. You're not pulling your weight. You know, it's me and Sophie, we created this sort of non-personal sort of atmosphere, friendship, whatever you call it, relationship, where we were going to call each other out, you know, for the next 5 months. If we didn't think one person was pulling their weight or rested enough or eating right, and we were going to make time to talk about that and do it and say it and leave no stone unturned, and that's exactly what we did.
It's just stalking each other's Instagram stories.
Yeah, what are you doing? Are you sat down?
Which you kind of did to me a little bit.
To you, yeah. Because when I found photos of Callum and he looked pretty drunk, I messaged him. I said, "Why the fuck are you drinking 2 months out from Rio? Why the hell are you doing it?"
I needed it at the time.
And Callum used to reply this, "I call a free beer." I said, "I see that
Oh
smile."
my
Yeah, but I had like,
smile.
you know, that emoji that's on your phone at the moment with like the wiggly face and the one half shut eye. It was basically looking like that with this massive stein in my hand.
Brilliant.
But no, I think that also shows the strength of a team as well, though. It's like there's not many teams out there that can call each other out as bluntly as it sounds like you two were able to do to each other.
We did, and I think we've taken that forwards, really. You know, that was the turning point. If we hadn't have been beaten at that World Champs, we would not have won a Paralympic gold medal, and we stand by that now. So, you know, we had these code words, you know, code red, we'd say, like, if we're just really unhappy with something, which, you know, luckily we never actually had to say, because we both knew what was at stake here, and we both wanted it, you know, and it's so important.
So it's just 3 levels, green, amber, and...
There was code red, there was I'm having a cool blue day, so that's like, I'm fine, I just don't want to chat, I'm just going to get on with training, leave me alone. We had a fair few of those.
Okay.
And then we had like a yellow day where we're just feeling brilliant. And
So you just come up to each other, say, "Code red."
Yeah.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No, but to be fair, with Phil, that would be like a red lag to a bull. If I went up to him and went, "Oh, code red," he'd be like licking his lips and rubbing his hands together, thinking like, "I can destroy him today."
Yeah, well, yeah. So that's how it worked, and yeah.
So that was the kind of real testament to your success, was that kind of ability to pull each other up, push each other on, and I guess so with Rachel James falling out the picture, it wasn't about beating someone else; it was about improving you two as a pairing.
Oh yeah, it was about winning that gold medal, and we knew we had a big old chunk, and even like, you know, to the day we woke up that morning of the Paralympic, well, it's obviously a final in the kilometre time trial, and we still had no idea, you know, what the rest of the world was going to do, but all we knew is that we were going to do the best ride we'd ever done.
And even the lead up to, like, so the day before the games, day of the games, you would still give the blue or the red or the code and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was. You
So
know,
was
we
it
still
all-
use it a little bit today, really.
Okay, but I guess there's a time and a place, so the closer we get to Tokyo, that's when it will start coming in again.
I think so. Yeah, it's just, you know, yeah, it's when you need it the most. As I say, it's not a personal thing. It wasn't like I'm angry with you. It's just like we both want the same thing here, so we need to push each other. And if you see something that you don't like, I don't want you to resent me or go back home and be like, oh, I didn't think Scotty was pushing enough weight in the gym today. You know, just say it. You know, and it's not taken, because one day we're going to thank each other, and luckily we did get to do that.
Yeah, so I guess Leo was that better than expected, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, in actual fact, the time that we'd sort of put down, this is what's going to win a gold medal in Rio, that isn't what we did. We were a little bit off that. But on the day, as you know, it doesn't really matter what time you've put down 6 months before. If it's the fastest on the day, it's the fastest.
And I think that's something that people don't understand as well, because it's as you said, it is who's best on the day. And it's that 4 years, or in your instance, it'd been a pretty rocky path on the way to there as well. And for all of that to come down to one day, like how do you feel you dealt with that stress better in Rio compared to how you did in London? Like, you know, because it's 4 years of work coming to a minute
Yeah.
and minute and 7, minute and 6 or something like
Yeah.
that, isn't it?
And it's something I think you forget about, don't you? Like in the meantime, in the 4 years in between each games, you do forget about, oh my God, this is all on one ride. I said to you, didn't I? I don't know whether you remember it, your retirement party. You know, I don't know how you sat on
I'd
that.
had a few alcohol-free beers
Yeah.
at that point.
Sitting on that line and in the Olympic final, knowing you've got Phil and Jace next to you who are defending champions, knowing that you've got to get on the back of that train, or that's it. I can't express how impressed I was by handling that pressure. But we all go through it, don't we? Like every day you're on the line going, I need to get this train off to the best start in the world. And
I don't think you think about it.
You
no,
don't know.
at the time you don't.
The Olympics felt like just any other race. I didn't even think about it. It was
Yeah.
the Olympics. Like,
I was too busy trying to beat you at Civilization.
yeah, we were playing computer games until like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. and thinking, shit, we need to like stop playing this game. We've got a race to do in 3 days' time. So
And that's the secret to the success.
Yeah.
I guess it's about distracting yourself from the consequences, because if you
Yeah.
thought about the consequences, so like I think it's something like 10 billion people at some point will tune in to watch the Olympic Games. I'm sure if Paralympics is not far
Mhm,
away,
yeah.
it'll be in the billions. Will tune into some event at one point. Like if you thought about how many people are watching
Yeah,
you on that stage, and you know what you've got to lose, you just wouldn't have the capacity to succeed, I guess.
No, exactly. You do. It's just like, you know, we say to each other, it's just like every other day training. You know, we do this every single day. We get out that start gate every day. And I do remember sat on the start line in Rio. It's the calmest I've ever felt.
Mm.
And it's true, you know, when they say, can you sit on that bike and think you've done everything you could? And I genuinely could. And that was a calming feeling for me.
So I guess in a bit of a way, the you know, the red, blue, whatever the colours were, that was basically you two holding each other up to a Paralympic Olympic standard performance every day in training,
Yeah, 100%.
and you had to do that every single day.
Yeah, that's what did it.
There you go. And then
That's what
obviously
did it.
we had tears of happiness, hopefully after
Yeah.
the double gold.
Yeah, it was. It was a really nervous wait because we weren't defending champions. Well, we weren't defending champions from the World Championship, so we went one but last with the Dutch to come, you know, the fastest in the world that year. So I remember just Sophie couldn't see the scoreboard, so it was down to me, and she was like, what's going on? And I was like, I couldn't speak. I was like watching the splits, you know, you can see whether you're up or
Yeah.
down. And with one lap to go, I think they were 8/10 down, and I was thinking they can't possibly
No, they
pull this
can't,
back
no.
now.
But that's one of the best. Like you probably haven't experienced this from not doing that many kilos, but I think that's one of the things that makes that event fantastic, especially as a competitor, because you can go off with 10 to go, and you'll be watching it, and maybe with like 5 to go, if you're still up there, you think, oh, I'm getting closer. But like it's just, as a spectator, it's one of the best things, I think, especially if you've invested as much as how painful a kilo is, just to watch that stopwatch.
I feel the same with the flying to 100. If you've done a good time, you're on top of the score. There's only 15 people to go, and then you see,
And then all
stay on top.
all of a sudden you're 16th.
Yeah, so, yeah, and then you suddenly, how did I end up 20th?
Brilliant.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So then that was mission achieved. Basically, you'd set out from London to get a gold medal. You doubled it. And I guess my next question is about how do you keep going? Like, what's the plan for Tokyo? What's the driving factor behind that?
Well, of course, now we have a gold medal. It's about defending it. I guess that's the drive now, defending it. And you know, thinking about maybe trying to break the world record again. But I think it's more than that for me now. You know, I think the older I get, you know, like you said, we've been here a long time now, and I think I just love what I do, and I feel very grateful to still be doing what I do. So it's sort of just, you know, the thought of going to another games, like my third games, and defending it. It's all very motivating, but I love it. I still love it. You know, don't get me wrong. There are times when I'm going up to a race and I think, oh, why do I put myself through
In code blue.
this? Yeah, in a cool blue day. But you know, it's a good life, isn't it?
Do you think you found a bit more balance since you moved on from being a younger athlete? Because I this might sound really weird, but I always remember having admiration for you being on the 7.5K pay barrier, which was like what you get when you first move onto the team.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I go and speak to the performance lifestyle lady. It was Jo Harrison at the time, and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, Helen Scott's saving like 200 quid a month." I'd be like, what the how the fuck does she manage to save 200 quid a month?
Is that what you said?
Yeah. And I remember like, oh yeah, well, if I'm going out, I need to make sure I've got this much to spend, and then that's it, and then I won't go out again, and then so it always seems to have been like quite a strict kind of structure to what you do outside. So nowadays you're also doing stuff with university and coaching and stuff like that. So talk us through what you're up to kind of keep that balance.
Oh God, I mean, my memory's not brilliant. So to think back to those days, but I guess like my dad's fab, you know, he'll always like drill it into us, you know, just don't live beyond your means and all that jazz
Phil.
and stuff. And and when I was on that tiny amount of money, well, I thought, right, I'm gonna have to make some more, you know, somehow. So I actually tried to get like a little part-time job, like when I was on, well, it was like the Para Academy, I guess, and I sort of went through a few interviews. I did like a typing test and stuff. Yeah, it was really weird. Like Joe set me up with it, and apparently I was brilliant at the typing, and all sorts of other things because I didn't want a job that I was on my feet, so I just wanted like an office job. And then like I don't know what happened with that, but then Sarah Story was setting up sort of like Team Story Sport, and she asked me to be sort of her sort of, I guess, PA. So I didn't really need this job thing anymore. I was sort of earning a bit of money from those guys, sort of.
Because there's something about that drive. Because I remember that I think the closest that we got to that was every day we'd like past an Aldi on the way home in Kingsway, and it'd say something like starting salary £31,000, and then we'd be like, that wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
But I guess it was all about kind of living within your means and like making the most of what you had.
Yeah.
But did you find that balance in a way? It wasn't just financial. It was about having, you know, a purpose outside of cycling.
I think at the time that didn't really bother me. I think it was just I wanted to be able to live, you know. I just passed my driving test. I wanted a car, you know, and things like that. I just knew that I just couldn't afford to live on what I had, so I don't know how you did it.
How did we do it?
You know, Liam Phillips used to be a waiter.
Did he?
Yeah, did you not know? He used to work
No,
in like
no, actually, yeah.
he used to work in like Chiquito or something like that. Yeah, as a waiter, because he couldn't live on the 7.5 grand, so he used to be waiter part time.
And you just decided you'd make tons of money out of World of Warcraft.
No.
You heard about this game, Scott?
I know the game, yeah. But
Yeah. I was very addicted
And
to
he's like,
it.
I'm gonna sell my really expensive profile to some Chinese guys for like.
It was I don't know what I was
£1,000.
thinking back then though. Literally, you know how I used to arrive late to training sessions and rush home early
Yeah.
to play this game, and like it nearly ruined my career, or saved my career. I don't know.
Okay, so we got the part-time typing job and say the story, all that kind of stuff back in the day. So what you up to now? Because you all seem like someone who's got a few strings to the bow.
Yeah, I've put on my Twitter profile thing at the end, like, I'm busy, because I am busy for my sins. I do it to myself. So I have been coaching for a while now. So around London 2012, I got my coaching qualifications, and I've been doing a little bit of online coaching. So that's going well. And then I started university in 2015 as well, doing exercise and sports science at Manchester Met. Because at the time, I remember I was really interested in strength and conditioning, and I said to our old gym coach, Martin Evans, I says, Mark, if I wanted to do what you do, like, what do I need to do? Like, what qualifications do I need? And he said, well, full stop, if you want to work within the EIS, you have to have a degree. So, like, a week later, I was signing up. So, yeah, so I started that, and I've been chipping away sort of ever since. And I guess it's just, you know, I'm not really very sciencey. You know, I guess I wanted to do a sports course that we could just chat about the Olympics all day, every day, but that's obviously not what it's about. It's very, very sciencey, which it seems obvious because it's in the title. So it's not really, I find it very challenging, but I am learning so much, and I'm taking it a little bit across into my own training and chatting with the support staff and coaches and stuff. So that's sort of in the background really, but my real passion is the coaching side at the moment.
So you think after sport you want to try and give back in that way, I guess? Like, so not so much in terms of a gym coach, but actually as a cycling coach?
Yeah, definitely. At the moment, that is sort of the first thing that I think of. I just love working with people, you know, and I try and help out on some of the junior camps and any of the EIS initiatives like Discover Your Power, stuff like that. I love that. Yeah.
Because we had quite an interesting like observation about coaching in the Para setup. So do you want to?
Yeah, there are not many competitive cyclists as a coach coaching the Para program, are there? Like on the able body program, you've got Jan, who used to be a competitive cyclist, Justin.
Yeah.
And
Kev
on the
used to,
Kev, and on the para program, there's no one really that has been a competitive cyclist, really, has there?
That's a great point. I guess John Norfolk was. He was probably the only one. I know a lot of them are keen cyclists, but no one has moved over. I'm not sure why that is. Because I'd absolutely love to, having been on my squad, the para squad, I'd love to be a coach on it. So maybe that's one thing.
Maybe that door will open down the line or something like that. So we're going to wind up with the most important question of the day, which is, Helen Scott, you seem to get invited to a lot of weddings. And Cian and I get invited to literally none. I'm not quite sure why. You get to go to a few.
I get to go to a few, yeah.
Love a wedding. Absolutely love a wedding.
I'm not sure if it's because, so at Laura Kenny's wedding, I was standing next to Len Simpson Parker, who was a pathophysiologist.
He was?
And a pathophysiologist, and then ended up being the able-bodied physiologist. And they were doing this really sentimental sand video thing. So they were they laid out this sand on this video, and then someone would draw a picture, and it'd be Jason and Laura's story through their life, basically. So then someone would be standing at the side of the photo of the video with these cards. So it'd be Danny King and Laura's sister Emma with these cards saying this is what this little sand drawing means, and then the person would wipe it, and then it'd be this little sand drawing means. So everyone was watching it. And I remember thinking, who's the loudest person here? So I went straight to Len and then just started whispering in his ear all these jokes. And he just burst out laughing the entire time. And he's got the loudest laugh you've ever heard. No. So it was this really sentimental bit, and you just get, it was terrible. And then Cian tripped me up in front of Jason's mum, and then it was a complete mess. So maybe that's why we don't get invited. So
yeah, maybe. I was just about to suggest asking if you can be my +2s at my mate's wedding this summer, but after that, no.
Well, no, we're okay. To be fair, Jason's mum did say that Cian and I made the wedding. You went home after a single beer.
I did, yeah. I didn't feel very well. I had a bit of a shocker.
So we need to up our game, because Cian and I used to live together, and the +1 was always for...
And Cian might not even turn up to the wedding, so...
Yeah, he didn't turn up to Clample's wedding. Do you remember that?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, Matthew Clampton. Cian said he was tired. So he didn't go to the wedding.
What was he thinking? Honestly?
He went to the stag do, but didn't go to the wedding.
Still tired from the stag do, maybe.
Yeah, mate. Yes. Clampo obviously is a really nice guy and just brushed it off and said, "Oh, that's fine."
And that was a fab wedding as well.
I think I behaved myself at that one, more or less.
Oh yeah, he was. You were throwing glasses outside. Oh,
shit.
And Tennant's wedding, you were throwing stools and tables around outside.
I mean, I don't know what comes over me at weddings.
Maybe that's why you don't get many invites.
I bring a bit of energy to the party. I've just got uncontained. It's not about them, it's about me enjoying myself at the wedding. Anyway, so thank you, Helen. It's been a really interesting chat, actually.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I think it's what we found going through all these ones. We've known a lot of these people for years, but we don't really know them. Yeah, and it's good to get under the skin a bit. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
And if you want to follow Helen on any social media, go on, shout it out.
At Scotty2507.
And if you want coaching from Helen Scott, you can go to...
Just tweet me at Scotty2507.
Oh, okay.
Slide into the DMs.
Slide into the DMs.
And please subscribe and like our podcast.
No one listens to that anyway.
We need to... Actually, one news we forgot to say is that we were in a new and noteworthy section. Yeah.
On iTunes.
Just right at the end.
Yes.
New and noteworthy.
So please give us ratings on podcasts, on the podcast apps, whatever, so we get in there again.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I mean, I don't really care, but you really love...
Oh, I love it.
Absolutely love it. So for Phil's sanity, and so he texts me a little bit less. You're texting me about 60 times a day with various updates.
Yeah, because you don't reply to me. That just cracks me.
It's because you overload me with information the entire time.
Anyways, let's wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you, Scotty.
Cheers.
Thanks.